Hey there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate you being here. So the past few months have been interesting to say the least, if you're familiar with the housing market. So if you didn't know, I actually work in real estate full-time professionally. I also do some stock market trading as well. But yeah, so the housing market was climbing crazy aggressively and just climbing and climbing and climbing ever since quarantine started. That's because of a issue called supply and demand, which is kind of a universal law for capitalism. Actually, not even capitalism, just universal law in general. So anyway, as people are not able to find houses to buy, the few people who are selling their homes, it was driving their prices further and further up, and it's been going like that for about the past 2 years. Approximately, I think 2 months ago, that finally shifted. So the market was cooling down around September-ish. Since the beginning of the year, it has gone up a little bit. In fact, in Clear Value Tax, he was talking about a video about this yesterday. Talking about how, according to, oh shoot, I forgot who said it was. Some big housing institution, I forget who it was, maybe Zillow. They said since the beginning of the year, housing prices have increased some like 1.5% or something, I don't remember. Very small amount, but that's year over year. So from today, September 1st, back till January 1st, there's only been a pretty minute increase, which I was expecting in the springtime we would see an increase a little bit, and I thought in the summertime it'd go up a little bit more. I was wrong. Actually, it's kind of flatlined over the summer, which is really, really unusual. Also really surprising. But the issue, or the reason for that, is because people are becoming more and more open to actually selling the house now that quarantine's over, and there's the COVID fear is pretty much not as existential as it was. But the issue that everybody's running into is that the cost of housing is now so high, nobody can afford to buy a new one. So that has jacked up the housing prices to what they are today. The problem is there's still a supply-demand issue. People are not buying as many homes, even though there's not as many available, because the interest rates are so high, because the Fed keeps jacking up interest rates, which isn't on purpose. It's supposed to deter people from being able to spend money because they have less money to work with. Therefore, the entire economy should be coming down along with unemployment. Unemployment rate should be increasing, which is bad, by the way. So part of that is that houses that are being built are not being completed because the cost to finish the home is greater than what they're going to be able, than the builders are going to be able to get out of the home once it's finished. That's due to labor shortage, material shortage, and then most importantly, the interest rates have gone up so high. Getting a loan to finish the house is just not reasonable. So the other thing is not many people are buying homes anymore because the economy is getting, well, not the economy, but most people are getting outpriced. I think it was this was as of, I think, October of last year, so almost a year ago. I think it was some 60+% of potential home buyers said that they're not going to be able to buy a home because the homes are just so expensive, plus interest rates are so high they can't afford it. So they need a housing crash to take place. So Clear Value Tax yesterday did a video, which I'm going to show here in a minute. Not the whole thing, just a little snippet of it. Talking about the housing market crash not happening. So I agree with most of what he's saying, but ultimately I disagree overall. I think a housing market crash could still absolutely happen. In fact, I think we could be looking at one coming up. I'm going to guess sometime late October to late December, somewhere within that window. I think come mid-February, actually, we should be at the bottom of whatever that crash might be. And by crash, I mean, I think we'll probably go back down to early 2020 pricing. Maybe early to mid 2020 pricing. So anyway, those are my thoughts, but I'll go ahead and share a tidbit of what he was talking about. And the link for this video is in the description if you want to see the whole thing. It is actually pretty good, as most of Clear Value Tax's videos are.
So don't be fooled by comparing post-pandemic summers against pre-pandemic winters. You have to compare apples to apples.
Sorry, I'm not in the right spot. I thought
Take a look at this 5-year chart.
Here we go.
The supply of homes reached a low in early 2022. Supply has been rising. However, notice how the supply goes up and down because of seasonality. Each year, it springs up around the summertime and it falls in the winter. Now, compare the summers, pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. So don't be fooled by comparing post-pandemic summers against pre-pandemic winters. You have to compare apples to apples.
All right. So what he's talking about is the seasonality cycles. Wintertime comes, less people want to move, so there are not as many homes bought or sold, so the overall demand goes down. Both supply and demand go down, which tends to drive pricing down. In the summertime, it's warmer out, people are more apt to move. Also, summer vacation, kids are not in school, so that's the better time to try to transition and all that kind of stuff. So both supply and demand will climb during the summertime, and prices ultimately typically tend to go up. So when 2020 hit, if you look at that graph, is during quarantine, supply dropped and dropped and dropped. It came up a little bit as homes were coming online, and then it dropped way low. The supply side did, or the homes for sale, so supply. And then it's coming back up because people are more open to it. But this is the peak of summer, and it's going to go back down again. So here's the bill. So the whole title of the video. Sorry, that was a really long-winded way of getting to this point right here. So this point that I'm getting at is what I predict could happen is that during or post midterm election, when it's likely that Republicans are going to take office or take over the House and the Senate, it looked like there was going to be a historic landslide since post-abortion issues have come out. It looks like it's going to be less of a landslide, but still probably going to be, they're going to take majority. I have a whole lot to say about that, but I'm not going to right now. This is not the video for that. Just, griping about pendulum elections and how they're, useless. So anyway, what I think could happen is right now Democrats are criticizing Republicans for not having a plan. But Mitch McConnell, the head of the Republicans right now, recently, well, not recently, but like about a year or two ago, came out saying, the best plan for the Republicans right now is to have no plan. So the Democrats' criticism is accurate, I would say. So right now, the Republican strategy is not be a Democrat, and that will get them in. And so far, they're not entirely wrong. That's a little questionable at the time being, but we'll see. Anyway, if they do take power, what I predict will probably happen is they'll be like, oh, we're in power now, and the reason why we got elected is because the Democrats aren't doing anything about the economy. We're also not doing anything about the economy, so maybe we should do something. The classic traditional Republican course of action is to do less taxes. So I predict that they will probably lift any kind of a capital gains tax on homes being built during a certain time frame. So if there are partial homes that are just sitting uncompleted, which there are a lot right now, that's contributing to the supply issue. As I mentioned, the hiking of interest rates from the Fed is exacerbating that problem. So it's killing both demand, but it's also killing the supply at the same time. So it's not fixing the problem. And we're just getting into this increasing gridlock where prices are just going to keep going up till there's gridlock and nobody can buy a house and nobody can sell a house and nobody's selling their house because they need to get into a new house, but they can't afford the new house to get into. So it's just going to be gridlock. And I think what will unclog the gridlock is if there is a relief of capital gains tax on newly built homes that will incentivize builders to complete homes and possibly even build new homes, possibly even companies like the one that I work for, which is to basically flip properties where you do a certain number of renovations to basically get a house like new and then turn around and sell it. If there is an incentive for getting more houses on the market, that will unclog it, but it could also trigger a panic where people are like, oh, suddenly my house isn't going to be worth as much as it was a year or 2 or 3 years ago. So now's the peak time to sell, and then the market's going to flood with supply and we will actually see a crash. So I predict that is a possibility. That could happen, but it would absolutely unclog. I can't think of another course of action that could potentially bring housing prices back down to a more reasonable rate. Because right now, because there's a gridlock of both supply and demand, there's nothing driving supply up or demand down far enough. Because as houses get more expensive, the few houses do come online, they are still going to be bought up, but they'll be bought up by like mega corporations and things like that. Another, I think, less likely course of action is there will be a mega corporation that just hoovers up all these houses, and then they suddenly put all their houses online to drop the housing market to screw over all their competitors. So It's possible. I think that is also a potential course of action. And if that does happen, then a bunch of individual home buyers will also put their house on the market to try to capitalize on the best price and then get into another place cheaper before the whole thing comes down. So that is another possibility, though I think potentially less likely. Although in 2008, a similar scenario did happen where hedge funds gobbled up other hedge funds while the market was going crazy. So could happen. I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got for now. So thank you for watching this far. I really appreciate it, and always stay classy. That's all I got. So bye for now.